So non-dual devotion orients us to the feeling of this presence. It's the feeling of the presence that we share everywhere all the time. So that's the devotion. And certainly because the human heart loves this creation, we'll continue to love the specific emanations, the specific beings, right? The beloveds, that which we're devoted to. So it's not somewhere weird, different, far off. It's actually right here. And so this is the great confusion, that it's somewhere else. It's actually always right here. And as we begin to recognize, right, the great gift of recognizing what is here, then we begin to deepen and open to what our own unique relationship will be, is, to the unfolding divinity of what this is, of consciousness, of God, goddess. Okay? So we get these little hints, right? We get these little twinkles of what the next step in the path is, what it is we're here to discover, how it is that we're going to explore the journey within God. Like they have that wonderful little saying, the journey to God is finite and the journey within God is infinite. Our journeys within God are unique and specific to what our, who knows how, I don't even know why it happens the way it does, but I'd like to share a story of this process of how the innate intelligent wisdom of Shiva Shakti transmits to us, through us, in multidimensional ways. This is completely transrational, so we're back in the land of mystery. Unbuckle your seatbelts, they are not necessary. So just going to share a little story. I love this story because for me, it's one of these processes that has just continued to ever deepen, not just my certainty, but my faith in the infinite power of what is here and unfolding each of us. And so I was in, some of you know, we have this place in Kauai that we like to visit. A friend of ours lives there, and he's got this temple, really beautiful temple to Bhagawan Nityananda, this guru of ours that is such a blessing. And I love to sit in this temple. It is, in fact, my favorite thing to do on the planet, is to meditate in this temple. So I was there. I had gone for a solo retreat a couple years back, and I was sitting in the temple just meditating, and out of nowhere, I have this experience of this golden temple emerging out of my heart, which of course is an exquisite teaching in and of itself, right? Like you don't really need anything else than that. But it's not it was not an image that I'd ever seen. I had no context for it, but it was this very clear image. And my teachers over the years have said, you know, when this comes through, you just thank it. What do you want me to know? What do you want me to know? Because I got nothing, right? So this temple, golden temple, comes through. So I come back to Portland. We get through the fall. We're having kirtan or devotional chanting at our house, which we do once a month. Super fun. If you're ever in Portland, please let us know. We'd love you to come. And there's this chant that I really love. And I love it for a couple of reasons. One of them is because it's the chant that the swamis, or the monks in the order that Jumbo was in India, it's the song they sing as they're taking their vows and they start to walk off to the Himalayas, right, in pursuit of truth, but they're called back to service. So I've always just loved that vision. It's like the Bodhisattva, right? It's very similar to that. So I've always loved this chant, and I love the way it feels in my mouth, and I love the vibration of it. And I really wanted to sing it at this kirtan. And the musicians were like, no, it's too complicated. We won't be able to do it. The Sanskrit's difficult. I was like, I don't care, we're doing it. Jimbo's like, no, it's too complicated. I was getting pushy. I'm like, no, we're doing it. And so we end up singing this chant. So we're singing this chant, which we'd never introduced to the group before, and it is complicated, but we're singing it anyway. And so I'm sitting there, I have this experience, which I'd never had before, land of mystery, please unbuckle your seatbelts. And I had this experience of actually shape-shifting into the deity of Shiva. Blue skin, snakes, the Ganga river flowing out of my mouth and out of my top knot. And I'm like, all right, I guess Shiva's in the house. And so we finished the chant. And so Jimbo stands up at the end of the chant and he's like, well, I just had the most incredible and unrefutable insistence from Shiva to stand up and talk about Shiva as incarnate deities. It was a very kind of shamanic deity in the tradition. So Jimbo stands up, talks about Shiva, and I'm like, and in his meditation, he's like, we don't do that. We don't really talk about Shiva in that way. And he was being insisted, no, stand up and talk about Shiva. So he does that. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'll need to share this. I'd had this experience of shapeshifting into Shiva, which had never happened before. And it turns out that this particular chant that we're singing, which I did not know what it was singing to, except I knew it was a Shiva chant, but it was singing to Kashi Vishwanath Temple, which is this really important temple in Kashi. Kashi, of course, is where the Buddha chose to give his first sermon.
Now called Varanasi.
Varanasi. Okay. So I knew nothing about Kashi. I knew nothing about Varanasi, but that's what this chant was singing to. And one of our friends, who I didn't know, he'd only come to chanting once before. He had just come back from India and he'd been living right beside that temple for a month, the one that we were just singing to, right? So I'm like, all right, fantastic. There's something that's wanting to be known here, right? So can you feel it? Like you can see that there are these pointers happening. So then I'm like, so what is this Vishwanath temple? So I get onto Dr. Google. I'm like, tell me something more about Vishwanath temple. And it is exactly the golden temple that arose out of my heart 4 months prior in meditation. Okay. So I'm like, all right, thank you, whatever you want me to know. So one of my
sufficiently blown.
Mine was sufficiently blown. Yeah.
It's sufficiently blown.
Right. But it gets better. So then one of my beloved teachers, Lee, he says to me, whenever you get these downloads, then you just ask, what do you want me to know? Why are you showing me this? What do you want me to know? So in meditation, I'm like, all right, what do you want me to know? You're shapeshifting, you're showing me Kashi Vishwanath Temple. And as soon as I asked the question, this immense pillar of white light from high above wherever to well below everywhere else, like shoots through the center of my spine. And I hear established pillars of light around the world. I'm like, great, who does that? Right? So turns out that not only was Kashi that exact golden temple that I had seen, that our friend had been in Kashi beside that temple, but this temple is considered where Buddha gave his first sermon. It's considered the first place where Shiva dropped his pillar of light on the planet. None of which I knew. I was completely uninformed about any of this. So I share this story, one, because it's a fun mind blow story, but two, because there is an incredibly coherent intelligence that is unfolding through these realms. Incredibly coherent, right? So this lineage, this Kashmir Shaivite lineage through these awake teachers are transmitting a certain view on reality that has a coherence, right? That again is well beyond what the rational mind might be able to conjure.
And we would suggest what we would call Shiva Shakti also can assume forms. That those forms are expressions of that infinite energy, but also they come to us because there's a correspondence to who we are as a unique expression. So because we don't want you to confuse Shiva with that particular form. Shiva is the name for that underlying infinite reality, but it does assume all forms, including our own forms. So forms in this path are not seen as something to skew. A form is a communication, and sometimes a unique communication that guides us in what we need at that moment of our path. Does this make sense at all to you?
Something that will be personal to you.
Yeah, meaning it's very meaningful. And when it happens across people, like she just described, where it's showing up in multiple unpredictable, non-solicited ways, then you know that you better pay attention.
Pay attention.
There's something here that you're being told and taught that you need to pay attention to. Next slide.
Oh,
Yeah, we're gonna have some questions at the
It's
end.
okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
well, it's also a confirmation of who you are.
Sure. Who we are fundamentally,
You are fundamentally.
as well as the
Besides being a
unique,
teacher up.
yeah,
it's
also the
who
unique
you
expression
are,
that
yeah.
there's an alignment, that you as an expression are in alignment with what, are you familiar with the concept of Dharma, as that each of us has a unique expression in life, and that's changing all the time. It's not like your Dharma is one thing, and every moment there's a Dharma that each of us are expressing, and that's amazing, you know. Yeah, so we are in alignment with our Dharma. Yes, beautiful.